Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you a harsh truth. Laziness is silently stealing your dreams. Every second you waste, someone else is out there making moves, getting ahead, building the life you keep saying you want. So I have one question for you. How much longer will you let laziness rob you? How many opportunities will you watch slip through your fingers before you finally decide enough is enough? If you're tired of making excuses, if you're done watching your potential go to waste, then listen closely, because today we kill laziness. You have work to do. Most people assume laziness saves energy, effort, and time, but here's the truth. Laziness is costing you everything that truly matters. I've spent 4 decades studying success and failure, observing people rise from nothing to everything, and others fall from everything to nothing. And here's what I've discovered. Laziness isn't just a habit, it's a disease. And like any disease, if left untreated, it will eventually destroy you. Let me introduce you to what I call the laziness tax, a hidden cost most people never consider. Every time you choose laziness over action, you're not just missing out on an opportunity, you're paying a tax on your future. I once met a young man in Houston named Bree, full of talent and potential. He told me, I know what I need to do, but I just can't get myself to do it. I asked him one simple question: how much is that costing you? That's the first principle in defeating laziness. You must recognize its true cost, not just in money, but in lost dreams, wasted potential, and opportunities that may never come again. Now let me introduce you to what I call the 4 destroyers of laziness. These aren't just techniques. They're life-changing principles that have transformed thousands of lives. These are the weapons you need when you're serious about eliminating laziness. The first destroyer is painful awareness. You must become painfully aware of what laziness is costing you, not just today, but next month, next year, and 5 years from now. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to be lazy when you're not thinking about the consequences? Interesting, isn't it? We often disconnect our present choices from their future cost. The second destroyer is immediate action. Here's something fascinating. Laziness disappears the moment you take action. Not tomorrow, not later, not when you feel like it, but right now. You know what most people do? They wait for motivation. They say, I'll start when I feel ready. Now, let me tell you something profound. Readiness is a myth. Action creates motivation, not the other way around. I once shared this principle at a seminar in Dallas. A gentleman approached me afterward and said, I've been waiting 20 years to feel ready. I asked him, and how's that working out for you? Isn't that interesting? 20 years of his life waiting for a feeling that only action could create. Now let me introduce you to what I call the 5-second rule. The moment you feel an impulse to act on a goal, you must physically move within 5 seconds or your brain will shut it down. Not 5 minutes, not 5 hours, 5 seconds. You see, your brain is designed to protect you from anything it perceives as uncomfortable or risky, including change, action, and growth. It treats them as threats. But here's what's remarkable about action. It unlocks resources you never even knew you had. Isn't that fascinating? When you're lazy, you can't see your true capabilities. But the moment you take action, opportunities begin to appear. I once spoke with a successful entrepreneur in Chicago. He told me, for years I believed I didn't have what it takes. Then one day I just started. And you know what I discovered? Everything I needed was already there. He just couldn't see it while he was stuck in laziness. The third destroyer of laziness is what I call momentum management. Most people don't grasp the true power of momentum. They believe success is about individual actions, but it's not. It's about consistent actions. Let me introduce you to what I call the momentum miracle. When you take action consistently, something incredible happens. Your actions begin generating their own energy. Fascinating, isn't it? Most people never experience this because they quit too soon. They take one step, maybe 2 or 3, then they pause, they congratulate themselves, take a break, and that's when laziness creeps back in. I once met a man in New York who built an empire worth hundreds of millions. I asked him for a secret. He told me, I made one rule early in my career. Never stop when you're tired. Stop when you're done. Isn't that interesting? The fourth destroyer of laziness is what I call environmental control. Here's something profound. Laziness thrives in certain environments, like a plant. It grows when given the right conditions and withers when deprived of them. Let me introduce you to what I call the lazy zone. Any environment that makes laziness easy and action difficult. Most people spend their entire lives in the lazy zone, then wonder why they can't break free. Here's what's fascinating. The most successful people I've ever met understood this principle. They designed environments that made laziness uncomfortable and action inevitable. I once taught this in Seattle, and afterward a woman approached me and said, "I've been trying to overcome laziness through willpower alone." I told her, that's like trying to sail against the wind by blowing into your own sails. You see, willpower isn't enough. You need what I call environmental power. A setup where laziness feels out of place and action feels natural. Now let me share with you what I call the 7 costs of laziness. These aren't just abstract concepts. They are the real, measurable prices you pay every time you choose comfort over growth. The first cost is time erosion. Most people think time is neutral, that it doesn't favor one side over the other. But here's something profound. Time always sides with action over laziness. Isn't that fascinating? When you're lazy, time becomes your enemy. It doesn't pause. It doesn't wait. It doesn't care about your excuses. Every minute spent in laziness is a minute working against you, not for you. I remember speaking with a man in Miami who said, "I'm waiting for the right time to start my business." I asked him, "While you're waiting, do you know what's happening? Your competition is building their business. The market is evolving. Opportunities are passing. Time isn't neutral. It charges interest on your laziness." The second cost is opportunity blindness. Opportunities don't just appear, they reveal themselves to those in motion. When you're lazy, you become blind to opportunities. Isn't that interesting? Let me introduce you to what I call the action lens, a clarity that only comes when you're moving forward. Think of it like driving a car at night. You can only see as far as your headlights reach, but that's enough to complete the journey. Most people, however, want to see the entire road before they begin. They want guarantees. They want certainty. But here's the truth. You don't need to see the whole path. You just need to take the first step. But here's what's fascinating. Certainty is the enemy of opportunity. The only certainty you need is this. Action beats laziness every single time. The third cost of laziness is what I call character erosion. Every time you choose laziness over action, you're not just losing time, you're losing something far more valuable. You're losing pieces of your character. Character isn't built in the big moments. It's built in all those small moments when you choose action over laziness. Isn't that fascinating? Every time you hit the snooze button, every time you say, "I'll do it tomorrow," every time you choose the easy way out, you're shaping the person you become. I was teaching this principle in Philadelphia when a young man asked me, "How do I build strong character?" I told him something that changed his life. I said, character is built one decision at a time, and laziness is character suicide. The fourth cost is what I call momentum murder. Success isn't just about what you do, it's about what you do consistently. Laziness doesn't just stop your progress, it kills your momentum. And here's what's fascinating about momentum. It's much harder to build than it is to maintain. Let me tell you about what I call momentum math. If you're at 0 and want to get to 10, that's hard work. But if you're at 7 and want to get to 10, that's much easier. Laziness takes you back to 0 every single time. I remember talking to an Olympic athlete who told me something profound. She said, "People think the hard part is the competition, but the real battle is with laziness during training. Every day I don't train, I'm not just losing that day, I'm losing part of what I built yesterday." Now here's something most people never think about. Laziness compounds, just like interest. Every time you choose laziness, you're not just losing today's opportunity, you're reducing your capacity for tomorrow's challenges. Let me tell you about what I call the laziness trap. This is something I've observed over 4 decades of studying human behavior. Laziness isn't just a state, it's a strategy. It's a strategy your mind uses to keep you comfortable, to keep you safe, to keep you small. Isn't it fascinating how your mind works? It tells you, let's wait until conditions are perfect. It whispers, "You deserve a break." And before you know it, you're caught in the laziness trap. The fifth cost of laziness is what I call dream deflation. Dreams don't die dramatically. They die gradually. They die every time you choose laziness over action. Every time you say tomorrow instead of now. I remember meeting a gentleman in Atlanta. He was 65 years old. He told me something that broke my heart. He said, "My biggest regret isn't the dreams I tried and failed at. It's the dreams I killed with laziness." Let me share with you what I call the Dream Protection Protocol. This is a system I developed after watching thousands of dreams die from laziness. The first rule is simple. Treat every day as if it's a direct deposit into your dream account. Most people think dreams are fragile things that need to be protected from failure. But here's what's fascinating. Dreams don't die from failure. They die from laziness. They die from inaction. They die from the slow poison of someday. The sixth cost of laziness is what I call potential paralysis. Here's something profound. Potential without action isn't just unused, it's unknown. You never discover what you're truly capable of while you're being lazy. Let me tell you about what I call the potential paradox. The more potential you have, the more dangerous laziness becomes. Isn't that interesting? The more capable you are, the more laziness can cost you. I was teaching this principle in Vancouver when a brilliant young woman came up to me and said, "Everyone tells me I have incredible potential." I asked her, "What's the market value of unused potential?" You see, potential without action is like having $1 million in a bank account you can't access. The seventh cost of laziness is what I call legacy limitation. Here's something most people never think about. Your laziness doesn't just affect you, it affects your legacy. It affects everyone who could have been inspired by your example, helped by your work, transformed by your contribution. Let me share with you what I call the legacy equation. It goes like this. Your daily choices, time, impact on others equals your legacy. Isn't that fascinating? Every time you choose laziness, you're not just diminishing your life, you're diminishing your legacy. I remember talking to a successful business owner in Boston. He told me, "I used to think my laziness was my private business. Then I realized my children were watching, my employees were watching, my community was watching. My laziness wasn't just hurting me, it was teaching others that it's okay to settle for less." Now, let me tell you about what I call the action revolution. This is what happens when you finally decide that enough is enough. When you decide that laziness has taken enough from you, stolen enough dreams, and killed enough opportunities. The action revolution starts with what I call the non-negotiable moment. This is when you make a decision so strong, so absolute, that laziness loses its power over you. Isn't that fascinating? One moment can change everything. Let me share with you the 3 stages of the action revolution. The first stage is what I call painful clarity. This is when you finally see laziness for what it really is. Not a friend who helps you rest, but an enemy that's stealing your life. I remember meeting a gentleman in San Francisco. He said, "I had my non-negotiable moment when I calculated how much money my laziness had cost me over the past decade. When he did the math, it was over $1 million. Isn't that interesting? He thought he was saving energy, but he was actually losing a fortune. The second stage is what I call strategic intolerance. Most people are too tolerant of their own laziness. They make excuses for it, justify it, and befriend it. But here's something profound. You can't defeat an enemy you're friendly with. Let me tell you about what I call the zero tolerance zone. This is a mental space where laziness gets no vote, no voice, and no victory. In this zone, you don't negotiate with laziness, you eliminate it. I was teaching in Chicago and a man asked me, "Isn't some laziness okay? Don't we need to rest sometimes?" I told him, don't confuse strategic rest with laziness. Rest is a planned part of progress. Laziness is the enemy of progress. The third stage is what I call momentum mastery. This is when action becomes your default setting, when being in motion feels more natural than being still, when productivity becomes your personality. Now, let me tell you about what I call the 5 laws of momentum mastery. These aren't just ideas. These are iron laws that govern the relationship between action and results. The first law is what I call the law of initiation. Here's something fascinating. The hardest part of any action isn't doing it, it's starting. Isn't that interesting? Most people wait for motivation to start. But here's the truth. Motivation comes after initiation, not before. I remember teaching this principle to a group of salespeople in Detroit. One of them said, "I'm waiting to feel confident before I make my calls." I told him, confidence isn't the prerequisite for action. It's the product of action. The second law is the law of continuation. Starting is important, but continuing is crucial. Most people can start. That's not the real challenge. The real challenge is continuing when the excitement fades, when the doubts creep in, when laziness whispers its seductive lies. Let me share with you what I call the continuation formula. It goes like this. Your ability to continue is directly proportional to your ability to make continuing non-negotiable. Isn't that fascinating? It's not about feeling like continuing. It's about making continuing your only option. The third law is the law of acceleration. Here's something profound. The longer you stay in motion, the easier it becomes to stay in motion. It's like a spacecraft breaking free from Earth's gravity. The hardest part is the initial break from inertia. I was working with a businessman in Houston, and he told me something remarkable. He said, "For years I thought success was about working harder. Now I realize it's about working longer, not in hours, but in consistency." The fourth law is the law of compound action. Most people understand compound interest in money, but they never apply it to action. Here's something fascinating. Every action you take not only produces its own results, but also makes every future action more effective. I remember teaching this in Toronto when a young entrepreneur asked me, "How long until I see results?" I told him the question isn't how long until you see results. The question is how long can you take action without needing to see results? Isn't that interesting? The fifth and final law is the law of legacy action. This is perhaps the most profound of all. Every action you take today isn't just changing your present, it's creating your legacy, it's setting an example that will echo through time. Let me leave you with the 3 ultimate truths about laziness and action. Truth number 1, laziness isn't your friend pretending to be your enemy. It's your enemy pretending to be your friend. Every time it offers you comfort, it's really offering you decay. Every time it offers you rest, it's really offering you regret. Truth number 2, the pain of action is temporary, but the pain of laziness is permanent. The discomfort of discipline weighs ounces, but the burden of regret weighs tons. Truth number 3, perhaps the most important of all, your life will never be more than your actions. Not your intentions, not your plans, not your hopes, not your dreams, your actions. So here's my challenge to you today. Don't just hear these words, act on them. Don't just think about action, take action. Don't just plan to overcome laziness, destroy it. Because in the end, it's not what you could have done that will matter. It's not what you should have done that will count. It's what you did. It's the actions you took. It's the laziness you killed. Your future is waiting. Your greatness is waiting. Your legacy is waiting. But none of them will come to you. You have to go to them. And the only way to go to them is through action. Kill your laziness. You have work to do. Not tomorrow, not later, not when you feel ready. Now, because now is all you have. And now is all you need for a better life. Laziness has taken enough from you. Enough time, enough dreams, enough opportunities. No more waiting, no more excuses. Your future is not a fantasy. It's the result of what you do right now. The world doesn't reward intentions, it rewards action. So get up, move forward, do the work. Because in the end, it won't be what you could have done that matters, it will be what you did. Your greatness is waiting, but it won't come to you. You have to go to it. And the only way to get there is through action. So go, win, dominate. And never let laziness steal from you again. Now is the time to take control. No more waiting, no more excuses. Take action today, start that project, hit that goal, and break free from laziness. If this message hit you, don't just listen, act. Like, share, and comment "I'm ready" if you're committed to destroying laziness and building your best life. Let's make it happen right now.